You ever look at a company's profit and think, okay, that's the number, simple, right? Well, what if I told you that number doesn't tell you the whole story? That the real story is actually hidden, buried deep inside those financial statements. So let's just get right to it. Is a company's reported profit lying to you? I know, that sounds super dramatic. But stick with me here, because by the end of this, you're going to see why asking that question is absolutely crucial if you want to figure out what a company is truly worth. Okay, check this out. This slide gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. On the left, you've got a pretty standard income statement for a company called Boston Scientific. See that line? Operating income for 2016, 447 million bucks. Now, look to the right. This is after an analyst gets their hands on it and reorganizes things. All of a sudden, that same year's profit jumps to over $1.8 billion. That's not a small change. So what on earth is going on here? How can the picture change that much? Well, that crazy difference brings us to what we call the reported profit illusion. And look, it's not like companies are out there trying to trick you on purpose. The real issue is that standard accounting rules, they can kind of jumble everything together. They mix the real day-to-day performance with a bunch of other stuff that has almost nothing to do with the core business. And that just ends up hiding the company's true, repeatable profit engine. So all these things that mess up the picture, analysts have a name for it: financial noise. The best way to think about it is like static on a radio. You're trying to listen to the music, that's the real business performance, but all you hear is this crackle and hiss. It's all the unpredictable, one-off expenses that make it so hard to see what's really going on. All right, so how do you actually spot this financial noise? What does it look like in the real world? Let's dive in and look at a couple of classic examples that analysts are always on the hunt for. Whoa! Just look at how wild this is. This chart shows one company's litigation expenses over 15 years. And in 2009, boom, a massive charge of over $2 billion. But then the very next year, it's a credit. The numbers are literally all over the place. I mean, how could you possibly try to forecast future profits when you have costs bouncing around like this? The short answer is you can't. This is pure 100% financial noise. And here's another great one: restructuring charges. Now, companies love to call these one-time costs, for things like layoffs or shutting down a factory. But just look at this chart. They pop up almost every single year. They're constantly dragging down the reported profit and totally hiding that much smoother, upward-trending core profit line you can also see here. So the big takeaway? These charges are anything but one-time. And look, these are just a couple of examples. A good analyst is trained to sniff out a whole bunch of these things. We're talking about the litigation and restructuring charges we just saw, for sure, but also stuff like impairment of intangible assets, certain royalty expenses, a lot of complex accounting entries. But the goal is always the same. Get rid of all that stuff, strip it out, so you can get to the core operational truth. Okay, so we've seen the problem, right? We've identified some of the main culprits. So now what? How do we actually fix it? Well, this is where financial analysts pull out their special toolkit, the one designed specifically to separate that clean signal from all that distracting noise. And the star of that toolkit? It's a metric called EBITDA. That stands for earnings before interest, taxes, and amortization of acquired intangibles. I know, it's a mouthful, but all you really need to know is that it's a super powerful tool designed to strip out those messy, non-operating expenses. It gives us a much cleaner look at a company's real day-to-day profitability. And this is where you really see the payoff. This is the aha moment. Take a look at this comparison of three big pharma companies. If you just look at the standard EBIT margin on the left, they all look kind of the same, right? They're all clustered around 28%. Pretty boring. But when you put on your analyst glasses and look at the EBITDA margin on the right, a totally different story pops out. Suddenly, Pfizer's core profitability jumps to over 37%. This reveals that its core business is way more profitable than its competitors. That is a massive insight that you would have completely missed otherwise. Okay, so let's put all the pieces together. We're going to walk through this whole transformation, from those messy reported numbers to really meaningful analysis that helps us find a company's true underlying value. It really is like a before and after. On the left, you've got the confusing, as-reported financial statements. It's a jumble. But on the right, you have the clean, reorganized analyst's view. And it focuses on just two things that really drive value. First is NOPAT, or net operating profit after taxes. That's the true profit from the core business.
And second is invested capital, which is basically all the money used to generate that profit. When you focus on just these two things, you get a much clearer, much more useful picture of how well the business is actually running.
It's not just about taking stuff out. Sometimes it's about moving things around. Take provisions, for example. These are just funds a company sets aside for future costs. Some of them, like product warranties, are totally normal, part of everyday operations. But others, like those restructuring charges we keep talking about, an analyst will often treat those more like debt. And doing that helps paint a much more accurate picture of a company's total debts and obligations. And this is the grand finale. This is how it all comes together. An analyst starts with the value of the company's core operations, in this case, about $859 million. Then they subtract those provisions we just talked about, the ones that are treated as debt equivalents. And what's the result? A much truer equity value of $696 million. This is the real bottom line, the number you find by cutting through all that noise. So, the next time you're looking at a company's financials, please don't just stop at that big, shiny profit number at the top. Ask yourself, what's the noise here? What's the real signal? What is really driving the value of the company I'm looking at?